The 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda is more than a muscle car. It's the crown jewel of Chrysler's E-body era, equal parts engineering brilliance and tragic timing. Just over 100 were built, yet their legend towers above muscle machines that sold in the tens of thousands. That rarity and drama make it one of the most collectible Mopars in history. If you love high-octane history told with a twist, buckle up, and hey, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to get very, very weird. Main countdown. The 71 Hemi Cuda was a one-year-only facelift. The twist? Its most aggressive look lived just a single model year. In 1970, the Barracuda and Cuda had clean, sharp lines. But 1971 brought quad headlamps, a new split grille, and meaner fender gills. These cosmetic updates made the car instantly recognizable, but Plymouth abandoned them the very next year. Why? Insurance and emissions were crushing muscle sales, and Chrysler didn't want to sink design money into a dying breed. For collectors, this one-year styling quirk makes 1971 cars instantly special. Spotter's tip: look for those fender gills, 3 slots behind the front wheel. If you see them, you're staring at the rarest shark in the Mopar ocean. And if you think that's unique, number 19 shows how the government nearly killed this car before it was born. Federal emissions nearly axed the Hemi. Here's the kicker. The 426 Hemi was never meant for 1971. In 1970, new federal emissions and safety standards were rolling in. Chrysler executives considered dropping the Hemi entirely after 1970, since it couldn't pass California emissions without major rework. But dealers begged, racers screamed, and Plymouth squeezed out one last year by adding tweaks like different carb calibration and exhaust gas recirculation. Still, the engine was on life support. Collectors know, if not for dealer pressure, the 1971 Hemi Cuda would not exist at all. Spotter's tip: original 1971 Hemis have Carter AFB carburetors stamped 4742S and 4745S. And if you think that's government drama, wait until number 18, when insurance companies waged all-out war on this car. Insurance companies blacklisted it. Even more shocking, you couldn't easily insure one. By 1971, insurance companies had figured out muscle cars were financial nightmares. They started penalizing cubic inches and horsepower ratings. The 426 Hemi, conservatively rated at 425 horsepower, was red flagged. Some companies flat out refused coverage. Others charged young buyers more for insurance than for monthly car payments. Rumor has it, some dealers detuned Hemis on paper to sneak them through. Today, this insurance death spiral explains why so few buyers ordered the 71 Hemi Cuda new. Spotter's angle: a real Hemi Cuda will carry code R in the VIN for the 426. Beware clones. Insurance records and fender tags don't lie. And speaking of rarity, number 17 reveals how few were actually built. Only 108 Hemi Cudas were made in 1971. The part nobody talks about? Rarity wasn't intentional. Plymouth built just 108 Hemi Cudas in 1971. 59 hardtops with 4 speeds, 58 with automatics, plus only 11 convertibles. Compare that to thousands of SS Chevelles or Boss Mustangs. Why so low? Insurance, cost, and Chrysler's lack of advertising killed demand. The base price of a Cuda was manageable, but ticking the Hemi box added over $800, a small fortune then. Today, that scarcity is everything. Auction houses whisper the number 11 convertibles like it's sacred. Spotter's tip: Real Hemi convertibles carry BS27R1 in the VIN. Anything else is a fake. And if you think 108 is rare, number 16 dives into a paint option that makes cars even scarcer. One color was priceless, plum crazy purple. But there's a twist. Not all colors were created equal. Plymouth's high-impact colors were wild: lemon twist yellow, sassy grass green, tor red. But plum crazy purple on a 71 Hemi Cuda? That was a unicorn. Only a handful were ordered in that shade, and when one shows up today, it can double auction value. One example sold north of $3 million in 2014. Why? The combination of outrageous color, one-year styling, and the legendary Hemi. Spotter's tip: original paint cars have a cowl tag with FC7 stamped clear as day. If it's not there, don't buy the story. And if you think colors got wild, number 15 exposes a roof option that collectors can't stop fighting about. The vinyl roof controversy. Why would anyone hide a Cuda's roofline? That's the debate. In 1971, buyers could order their Hemi Cuda with a vinyl roof, black, white, even green. Purists today argue it ruined the clean fastback silhouette. Others claim it was period-correct luxury, adding resale appeal back then. What makes it weird is that some dealer records show buyers tearing the vinyl off almost immediately, repainting the roof in body color. The twist? Survivors with their original vinyl intact are now worth more at auction, since so many were corrected by owners. Spotter's tip: check under the drip rail trim. If you see original grain patterns and factory glue, you've got the real deal. And speaking of options nobody expected, number 14 takes us under the hood to an unlikely carburetor setup. Dual quad carbs, but still underrated. Here's the kicker: Plymouth lied. The 426 Hemi in the 71 Cuda ran dual Carter 4-barrel carburetors. The factory rating? 425 horsepower, but dyno tests showed closer to 470, even 500, depending on tune. Why did Chrysler sandbag? Insurance pressure again. By underrating the Hemi, they hoped to sneak it past regulators and insurers. The irony? The strategy backfired. Everybody knew it was hotter. Even drag racers used the Hemi as a baseline legend. Spotter's tip: authentic carbs are Carter AFBS with sequential part numbers. If they don't match, it's a red flag. And if horsepower was fudged, wait until you see how number 13 hid serious race hardware in plain sight. The shaker hood wasn't just show. The twist? It was functional, sort of. The shaker hood scoop bolted directly to the engine, protruded through the hood, and quivered with every rev. While it looked theatrical, it also funneled cooler outside air into the carbs. But here's the weird part. Some insurance companies claim the shaker made the car too powerful and tried charging extra premiums if the option was listed. Dealers allegedly removed or swapped shakers to sneak cars through paperwork. Today, a real shaker adds tens of thousands in value. Spotter's tip: original shakers have metal bases stamped with Chrysler part numbers. Plastic reproductions? Dead giveaway. And if you think a scoop was cool, number 12 shows how the seats were even stranger. The billboard stripes were the loudest seats in Detroit. Wait, stripes? Inside? Here's where it gets weird. The 1971 Hemi Cuda could be optioned with giant billboard side stripes spelling out Cuda in block letters across the quarter panels. But even stranger were the interiors. Buyers could match exterior high-impact colors with equally loud seats, lime green inserts, burnt orange vinyl, or blue metallic grain. Period photos show buyers rejecting cars on the lot because the combos were too wild. Today, those mismatched color cars are highly prized. Spotter's tip: the fender tag codes TRM numbers. If it matches wild interiors like H6XW, you've struck gold. And if you think stripes were bold, number 11 reveals how export versions looked nothing like their US siblings. Export Hemi Cudas had strange badges. The part nobody talks about? Foreign market cars were forced to tone it down. Some Hemi Cudas shipped to Europe and Canada came with unique side markers, different mirrors, and metric gauges. In Switzerland, cars wore smaller exhaust tips to meet noise laws. Rumor has it, at least 2 cars went to France wearing oddball Barracuda badging instead of Cuda, thanks to translation errors. These export anomalies confuse collectors today. Are they clones or just legal oddities? Spotter's tip: export VIN tags often include different codes for lighting compliance. If you see amber turn signals on a 1971 Hemi Cuda, you may be staring at one of the rarest Mopars of all. And if exports confuse you, number 10 will blow your mind with how drag racing rewrote the car's DNA. Drag racers got backdoor support. And that's when things get weird. On paper, Chrysler had pulled back from factory racing, but insiders knew the Hemi Cuda was still finding its way to the strip through backdoor channels. Dealers like Mr. Norm's Grand Spalding Dodge and Sox and Martin received parts, setups, and even whole cars with subtle tweaks, thinner metal panels, reinforced leaf springs, and factory blueprinted Hemis. These weren't advertised, but they dominated supers, stock classes. Spotter's tip: look for factory welded reinforcements around rear shock mounts. If you see them, you may have stumbled onto a secret drag package car. And if Chrysler was quietly racing, number 9 shows how Hollywood was quietly selling the car's soul. Hollywood gave it a cameo, then wrecked it. Here's the kicker: some Hemi Cudas died on screen. A 1971 Hemi Cuda made a brief appearance in Phantasm and later in Nash Bridges, though in most cases, studios used lesser Cuda models and dressed them up. Rumor has it at least one real Hemi was destroyed during filming of a low-budget 1970s chase flick, scrapped because nobody valued it yet. Today, that would be a multi-million-dollar tragedy. Spotter's tip: TV cars often had vinyl interiors swapped for leather look covers to film better under studio lights. If a car's trim tag doesn't match the upholstery, it may have Hollywood history. And if wrecked movie cars sting, wait until number 8, when recalls nearly killed survivors on the street. The seatbelt interlock recall. But there's a twist. Federal safety almost sidelined them. In 1971, U.S. law began requiring seatbelt interlocks that prevented the car from starting unless belts were buckled. Plymouth implemented crude systems that often failed, leaving cars dead in driveways. Complaints piled up, recalls were issued, and dealers bypassed the system by rewiring ignitions. Today, collectors hunt for cars that still have the original interlock intact, a true rarity. Spotter's tip: check the wiring harness under the seat. If you see extra connectors leading to the starter circuit, you've got a legit 1971 recall survivor. And if safety rules were harsh, number 7 reveals how Chrysler played paint tricks to dodge regulations. Hidden hood pins to fool the feds. Even more shocking? Some were disguised. Hood pins were standard safety for high-performance cars, but regulators worried about sharp protrusions. Plymouth offered flush-style pop-top pins on some 71 Hemi Cudas. These sat nearly flush with the hood, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Rumor suggests this was partly to appease safety inspectors while still satisfying racers who demanded pins at the strip. Today, finding an original flush pin hood is like spotting Bigfoot. Spotter's tip: originals use a unique spring clip not found on reproductions. And if hiding pins sounds sneaky, Number 6 reveals how Chrysler hid entire prototype engines that never saw daylight. The 440-6 prototype Cuda that never was. Here's the part nobody talks about. The 446 barrel almost replaced the Hemi. By 1971, Chrysler was tired of wrestling with emissions certification for the 426 Hemi. Engineers floated the idea of killing it entirely, replacing the top dog with the 440-6, 3 Holly 2 barrels. Several prototype 71 Cudas were built with that motor as Hemi killers, but dealers revolted, insisting the Hemi name was too valuable. Chrysler relented. Barely. Spotter's tip. The broadcast sheet factory build sheet will tell the truth. If it shows E87 instead of E74, you're looking at a 440-6 car, not a Hemi. And if engines nearly got swapped, number 5 will shock you with what collectors almost missed forever. 5. The lost convertible, rediscovered. Why? Because sometimes legends hide in barns. Of the 11 Hemi Cuda convertibles built in 1971, one disappeared from records for decades. It resurfaced in the early 2000s, found in Europe with mismatched parts and faded paint. Experts authenticated it through its BS27R1B VIN, proving it was one of the Holy 11. Today, it's restored and valued at over $4 million. Spotter's tip. Convertible Hemis are always coded with 27 in the VN. Without it, it's a coupe, no matter what the story says. And if one barn find shook the Mopar world, number 4 reveals how even new cars were built with bizarre mistakes. Factory misprints made freaks. But there's a twist. The factory itself made errors. With low-volume cars like the Hemi Cuda, small mistakes slipped through. Wrong decals, swapped gauges, even misstamped fender tags. One known survivor has 440-6 callouts on the shaker, even though its VIN proves it's a Hemi. Collectors call these factory freaks, and instead of hurting value, they skyrocket prices due to uniqueness. Spotter's tip. Cross-check the engine pad stamp with the fender tag. If they conflict, you might have a freak on your hands. And if factory quirks are wild, number 3 shows how racing rules forced Chrysler to cheat in plain sight. Homologation hustle. The NASCAR fallout. The kicker? The Hemi was banned. By 1970, NASCAR had outlawed the 426 Hemi in certain forms, citing unfair advantage. Chrysler detuned versions for street cars to keep the engine alive. But drag racers knew how to unlock its true potential. The 71 Hemi Cuda carried parts designed to meet homologation quotas, like beefy Dana 60 rear axles, even though most street buyers never needed them. Spotter's tip. The Dana 60 has a distinct 60 casting mark on the rear housing. If it's there, you're seeing racing DNA hidden under a street car. And if NASCAR bans sound dramatic, number 2 proves the car's legend only grew louder after its death. Auction prices rewrote history. Here's the kicker. It became the most expensive muscle car ever. In 2014, a 1971 Hemi Cuda convertible sold for $3.5 million at Mecum. Another topped $4 million at Barrett-Jackson. These numbers made headlines, catapulting the 71 Hemi Cuda into mythic status above Shelbys, Boss Mustangs, and even Ferraris of the same era. Why? Rarity, performance, and cultural lore combined into a perfect storm. Today, insurance companies that once hated it now list it as untouchable elite. Spotter's tip. Originality matters. Numbers matching blocks and original paint double values. And yet, the biggest shock is still ahead because number 1, it almost didn't exist at all. The Hemi Cuda nearly died in 1970. The big reveal? The 1971 Hemi Cuda is a car that lived on borrowed time. In mid-1970, Chrysler execs held a closed-door meeting about the Hemi. Sales were slow, emissions compliance was expensive, and insurance companies were destroying demand. The proposal? Kill the Hemi after 1970. Engineers pushed back, citing dealer loyalty and brand prestige. Plymouth reluctantly agreed to extend it one final year, building just over 100. That decision created one of the rarest, most collectible American muscle cars of all time. Without that single meeting, the 1971 Hemi Cuda would be nothing but a rumor in Mopar history. Today, every surviving car is more than metal. It's a monument to survival in the face of extinction. And that's why collectors treat it less like a car and more like a relic. So what do we make of the 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda? It wasn't built in big numbers. It wasn't cheap. It wasn't practical. And yet, it became immortal. From insurance nightmares and federal recalls to barn finds and million-dollar auctions, the 71 Hemi Cuda embodies the last gasp of the muscle car wars before the curtain fell on Detroit excess. It's a story of survival, missteps, and sheer mechanical audacity. A car that almost didn't exist, but became the crown jewel of Mopar mythology. Which fact blew your mind the most? Was it the lost convertible, the insurance blacklisting, or the factory freaks? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take. And if you're hungry for more, check out our deep dives into the 1970 Challenger RT and the 1969 Roadrunner. Until next time, keep your eyes sharp, your VIN tags clean, and your foot firmly planted.